Hey everybody, welcome to our video on limiting factors and carrying capacity. So these are big impacts of an environment that we're going to take a look at. So the number one thing we're going to look at is what is it? What are these things? Number two, how do biotic and abiotic factors impact carrying capacity? Okay, so let's get started. You only need three things to live. Believe it or not, you only need three things. You need food, you need some water, and you need shelter. Yes, you can put a fourth saying oxygen, but there's pretty much nowhere on this planet besides underwater that you're not going to get oxygen. So we're not going to look at that one. In the realm of an environment where you could live, you need three things: food, water, shelter. Cell phone, don't need it. Xbox, don't need it. Those shoes you love, don't need it. Okay, you need food, water, shelter. That's it. So when we talk about an ecosystem, these three things really impact how many organisms can live in that environment. So it's what we call limiting factors. What I mean by that is, let's talk about food. If I have 10 rabbits and I release 30 wolves, well, there's not enough food for all of them to go around, so it's going to limit how many of those wolves can live. Some of them are going to die off. That's life, unfortunately. That's the nature. That's Mother Nature doing its course. Okay. Same thing with water. If there's not a lot of water, like a desert, we're going to see a decreased amount of biodiversity, decreased amount of organisms living in that area because there's just not enough water to go around. Shelter, same thing. If I have, let's say there's only one bird per tree, I have 10 trees, I got 10 birds. That's the most I can have. If I release 20, well, unfortunately, half of those birds are going to either have to find a new ecosystem, go migrate away, or they're going to unfortunately pass away because they don't have shelter. Okay, so these things are limiting factors. They're big. They limit how big a population can get. Food, water, shelter. That's it. Okay, so now what is carrying capacity? It's very similar. Limiting factors impact carrying capacity. So how we use this term is we talk about the carrying capacity of an environment. The way I like to think about it is when I was in high school, and my mom made me bring in the groceries, I used to try to carry all the bags at once. Every once in a while, I would reach my capacity to carry those bags. Let's say it was 20 bags, I couldn't carry any more. That was my carrying capacity. So carrying capacity is the amount of organisms that can live in that environment. And I'm going to show that in a graph right now. I know you all love graphs. So down on the bottom I have time on the x-axis, and on the y I have the size of the population. Let's say we have a brand new population. It's a big open field with bushes and grass, and we release a bunch of deer. Well, what's going to happen is that population of deer is going to increase, because there's enough food. Let's say there's enough water, and there's enough shelter. Yeah. What happens is that population gets so big, though, that food, water, shelter, they got to start competing over it. And when we start seeing competition, we start seeing the population not increase as much because some deer are going to starve. Some deer are not going to have shelter, and they're going to, maybe in the winter, freeze to death. There's not enough food, not enough water. So what we start to see is the population level out. Okay. Actually, in reality, it usually looks like this. We usually see it increase, decrease, increase, decrease, increase, decrease, like that. And this line right about the middle here, that's our carrying capacity. Carrying capacity. It's the amount of organisms an environment can hold. That's really it. Okay, so when it boils down to it, it's the amount of organisms an environment can hold. Or I'm going to use the word sustain. So the amount of organisms that an environment can sustain for a long period of time. So what we see in this graph is we'll see the deer population go up, and then there's not enough food, so the population goes down. Some of them die off, and usually enough die off where now there's enough food, so the population creeps back up. Then it goes back to, and it's just this cycle back and forth. Now if I release a wolf in there or a fox, well, that's going to drastically change the carrying capacity for deer in that environment, because now there's a predator taking some of them down. If I then, let's say I get rid of half the plants in the environment, I'm also going to see a decrease in that carrying capacity for the environment. Now, you will see sometimes, so I'm just giving you a heads up right now, many times you will see carrying capacity just written as a letter K. Don't know why. Well, I do know why, but carrying capacity stands for K. So on a graph, or if someone's saying the K of an environment, it's the carrying capacity. Just want to give you a heads up with that. Now, once again, the big thing is carrying capacity is determined by the abiotic and biotic factors. So we know biotic and abiotic factors. Let's stick with abiotic. So let's say the size of an island. Well, the bigger the island, the more space, the more shelter that these animals can have. So we're going to see an increased carrying capacity. If it's a super small island, well, we're going to see a lower carrying capacity. If the island has a lot of food, increased carrying capacity. A tornado comes and kills most of the plants. Well, we're going to see a decrease in carrying capacity. So biotic and abiotic factors can greatly impact the carrying capacity of an environment. All right, so those are our two big terms for this video, is carrying capacity and limiting factors. Okay, so carrying capacity, remember, the amount of organisms the environment can sustain, and then a limiting factor is one of the things that limits that population size, that controls that population size, and it's usually one of these three things: food, water, shelter. Okay, that's it. Hope you guys liked this one. Good luck.